Hi, this is Jack Stanley, and I wanted to tell a little story that is very unique for its time. And what's so unique about it is doctors. You know, I had a wonderful doctor when I was a kid, and he would always prescribe wonderful things, and he had unique ways of doing things. Now, you have to understand something. When I was a kid, many, many years ago, doctors would make house calls. They would come to your house when you didn't feel well, which was great. Of course, you don't see stuff like that today. And my doctor was 75 years old. I remember that. He was a very old man. He'd been practicing medicine for, I believe, 50 years, if not more. And so he had been practicing medicine, since like 1910. And so it was quite fascinating, his various remedies. And all of them worked, but today would be looked upon perhaps not in a very good fashion. First off, when I was a little kid, I never liked sleeping. And I must confess, even today as an older man, I still am not much of a sleeper. I will sleep a bit, and then I'll wake up in the middle of the night and piddle and fiddle around and do stuff, and I just will not sleep well. It's just the way I am. That's my makeup, my DNA, perhaps. But when I was a little baby, I would be doing the same thing. I'd be up and piddling around and doing this, that, and everything else, and driving my parents crazy because they wanted to sleep. So they contacted our doctor, and he came over, and he looked at me. He said I was fine, but I needed a little help sleeping. So he recommended an eyedropper of whiskey every night to be put in my formula. It was pretty cool. And you know something? It worked. It worked quite well. I slept pretty well. And so my mother, every night, she would buy a bottle of whiskey. She'd fill the eyedropper. She'd pour it into my little bottle. I would drink that up, and bang, I was out. And so it worked quite well. Also, when I was a kid and teething, suggested taking whiskey and you put it over the gums to help. And that was done as well. Sometimes we'd have tummy trouble, and he would come and he'd pull out Coca Cola syrup, and we'd use that for our tummy. Sometimes we'd have to get a shot. Of course, he would always come, always dressed in a suit, and he'd have his Gladstone bag filled with all his necessary items, a stethoscope, a tongue recessor, and he might have had, I think he had a blood pressure thing in there too. And of course he had syringes and various medicines, but Coca-Cola syrup, and he also had a small little bottle of scotch which he would use on us, if we needed it, like on our teeth or something like that. It's interesting how doctors have changed. I don't know, and I might be wrong. There may be medical forms of whiskey today used for children, but I don't know if that's still done. But all I have to say is I really liked my doctor. He was from another age, and to have whiskey prescribed for you, I guess, is pretty unique and pretty fascinating. Another thing that he would do, he would sit there if you had a bad cold. He'd sit there and bang you on the back and stuff like that. And he had a little treasure trove of candies and stuff in his bag too. So if he gave you something, he would always give you a lollipop or a candy to make you feel better. That's old-time medicine. But I have to tell you, the shot of whiskey every night in my formula worked well. Even to this day, if I'm not sleeping well, I'll pour myself a glass of scotch or something with a little mixer, and that usually will put me out. All the advice of my doctor, who started his practice well over 100 years ago, long since gone. But it's an interesting memory, and I thought it would be fun to share. So, here's to today's medicine and a little look at yesterday's.